welcome to our show, Women to Women. I'm Carol Paz, your hostess, and as we always promise, we have a very special lady with us that I'll introduce to you in just a few moments. But first, I'd like to take time to thank our sponsors. I'd like to thank the Horseshoe Club right here in downtown Carson City. If you're looking for an entertainment of an evening, just step back in time, step back in history, and visit the Horseshoe Club right here in the historic part of downtown Carson. I'd also like to thank Dr. Kent Gabriel, MD, who's one of the finest microplastic surgeons here in the country, and we're very fortunate to have him not only have his offices here, but he lives here in Carson City as well. So his specialty is the hand. And if you're thinking of other types of plastic surgery, he's a wonderful mentor and a wonderful physician. We'd also like to thank Bank of the West. And as a matter of fact, our guest tonight is from Bank of the West. If you're looking for that local downtown hospitality and customer service, Bank of the West has it. So without further ado, let me introduce to you our guest for the night, Kris Smith. Kris, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for inviting me,
Okay. Carol. Well, you came highly recommended. I want you to know that. So, Kris, we're going to get into your career and what you do with Bank of the West in just a few minutes. But first of all, can you kind of fill us in? Where do you come from originally?
Well, Carol, I was raised in Anaheim, California. Back in the orange groves and strawberry fields in a great time.
That used to be.
It was a wonderful place to grow up. I feel so blessed to be raised there. And spent most of my life there. I was fortunate enough to spend all the way up until I was a junior in high school. My parents swept me off to Salt Lake City, Utah.
Ah, okay.
Which was quite a culture shock.
Right, but from one beautiful area of the country to another very beautiful area.
Absolutely. Yes. I think when you're a junior in high school, though, nothing's beautiful when you're torn from your friends and everything that you knew, but it ended up being a good move. And Utah is a beautiful place, and eventually I moved back there to raise my children because I wanted to get them out of Southern California. So
you saw some changes that were happening in Southern California at the time when you had children?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I mean,
go
ahead.
Okay, let me ask you this. Growing up as a young girl in California at the time that you did, which is probably about the time I was growing up in the Midwest as well, what are some of those values or what are some of those memories that you take with you, even when you went into Utah and later that you shared with your family? What was great about California at that time?
You know, I look back and I think about the freedom we had back then that teenagers and children don't have today.
For example, what are you talking about specifically?
The freedom to just go and roam and walk to your friend's home and be out and about as long as you were home by dark. You know, it was okay.
Yes,
and those days are gone now, and that's sad to me.
It is. It is. It's such a limiting factor, isn't it? I can remember exactly what you said. My mom said, make sure you're home by supper time, and if it was winter, make sure you're home before dark, okay? And I could be swinging in trees like a Tarzan character, okay?
No one knew and no one cared, right?
Exactly. Or we could be playing cowboys and Indians or whatever. But you're right. That was a time of adventure and feeling safe to adventure. And people that you met on the street, even as strangers, were very protective of you and kind to you. Right. There wasn't, at least in my memories of that time, very much to have to fear.
No, no.
All right, so when you came to Utah as a junior out of high school or in high school, how did you adapt? I mean, what did it take from you? Because it is rough. I'm a teacher, and I know that when my kids come to me brand new in high school as juniors from another area, seniors, there's some resentment there, and it's tough making friends at that stage of your life in that environment.
It really is, especially coming from California to Utah, totally different culture, even back then. Okay. I'm not sure I adapted, Carol, to be honest.
Okay, so the breakthrough was not easy.
You know, I was the youngest of 6 kids. So when my parents left, I was the only one that had to go. So I left my siblings behind and moved away from everything I knew. So I didn't adapt really well, and I'm sure that had an impact on my life. To be perfectly honest, I got through high school, graduated, and left and went back to Southern California. the night of my ceremony. So I guess you could say I never adapted.
Okay, you had an agenda.
I was a California girl,
okay.
Interestingly enough. But yeah, I left immediately and went back.
So did you, back in California, did you seek further education?
You know, I didn't. And,
okay.
And I believe that obviously influenced my future. At the time, all I cared about was getting back to what I knew and to the people I knew. And, you know, when you're 17, you don't know nearly as much as you think
you do.
But my only agenda was to get back to what I knew, which really wasn't there once I came back. But I did not seek an education.
Did you seek work experience?
Well, I did out of absolute need.
Okay.
Yeah, and you know, it's interesting because...
There's nothing wrong with that.
No, but you know, it was like my parents wanted me to go to college so bad, and they offered to send me anywhere. And back then, and maybe it was the environment that I grew up, or it could have to do with my family life, I didn't want an education. I wanted to be a mom. That's all I wanted to do was get married, have babies, have a nice house, and do macrame, right, Carol? I mean, that was what was important to me.
And at that time, those were very solid values that most families for their daughters hoped. I mean, my father was absolutely opposed to my sister and I going to college. It was my mother who had the college education that pressed for it. He would much have preferred for us to stay home, find work locally, and rise up in the bank. He was, you know, head of a bank there. But that was not to be. So, how did you eventually come into the banking world?
Because I have to chuckle a little bit because it was quite honestly by accident.
Okay.
I've been in sales my entire life, my entire career, and it's getting a little personal, but that's okay. After a very sad and painful divorce, I was a business owner, and through that divorce, I lost my business. And so,
as many women do,
at the age of 50, I had to seek a new career, and that was very challenging.
Yes,
very intimidating.
God bless you.
And you know, at 50, without the education and the trade and sales, I believe in sales. Sales is what makes the world go round.
Yes.
It has done well for me my entire life.
Wonderful.
But at 50, it's kind of hard to go get a totally different profession in that field.
Okay, let me ask you. Okay, you find yourself coming out of a painful divorce. And something that takes a toll on you emotionally and mentally, psychologically. So let me ask, how did you prioritize what you needed to do? How did you talk to yourself and say, okay, Kris, let's get back on the path. I need to establish some goals here. How did you do that? Did you talk with someone? Did you, or did you work your way through it personally?
Well, you know, when you're in sales, you're used to working commission. You're used to having those work ethics that, you know, you get up and you go to work every day and something happens. And I've kind of lived by that my entire career. So
there was a framework that you could really fall back on because it was a part of who you were at that time, and you still are.
Yes, and being self-employed, you know, you're self-driven. No one's telling you what to do. So I'm sure that experience, you know, did a lot for me. But it was really a matter of going out and beating the bushes and looking for work and someone to hire me. And I was determined. And to be perfectly honest, I had how should I put it? It was a direct lender hire me. It was a very bottom of the ladder in that industry, and I was willing to take it, and I did it, and it was more telemarketing and trying to sell loans by the phone, you know.
But you're working from ground zero.
Yes,
and you're establishing
absolutely
important experience. And the fact that you know, sales has a lot of relationships with people and knowing how to communicate, those skills of communication, and certainly communicating with 5 other siblings during your lifetime, that had to help,
Taught me something, didn't it?
Yes, and even when you look back and your almost personal desperate need to get back to California as a junior and senior, even that kind of isolationism, where you're not communicating as much as necessary or as possible, must have had, you know, it's better to communicate than to hold back or hold off or become an isolationist. So there was a lot of background in you that was playing a role, I'm sure.
You know, I think that isolation made me get in touch with myself back then.
Yes.
You know, I was my own friend.
Yes, yes, and that's not
and
bad.
I was on
That's
my own mission too. It made me very strong at a young age. But you know, as far as sales is working with people. It's dealing with people, and that's what I've always loved about sales. As far as mortgage, what's so exciting to me is, you know, that product is the, you know, highest value product and one of the most important products that people buy in their entire life.
Right. Now, when you say a high product, kind of explain to us what all's entailed.
Well, it's the largest dollar purchase that you generally make in your life. So, and it's a very personal product because it's your home.
That's right.
And there, you know, there's a huge responsibility. I take a huge responsibility as a lender that my customers are giving me that responsibility to close that loan because it's their home, it's their dream home, it's their haven, it's what they've worked hard for their whole life. So it's a huge responsibility.
It is, and it's again a relationship that's being established not only right now but for the future as well. And I would venture to say that most people who have a positive relationship with a mortgage lender or a banker who deals with mortgages, they'll come back to that same bank, that same person, perhaps later on, or recommend others to do so.
You know, that's what we're all about as far as Bank of the West, is establishing relationships. It's not one product, it's not one transaction. And I get to know my customers very, very well.
Well, you know, I'm sure you do. And when we come back, I'm hoping that you'll be able to kind of expand, which I know you can, the banking regulations and banking rules for mortgages and for so many other things have changed. And the American public, some of them are comfortable with it, but I think most of us don't understand what we need to pay attention to when we walk into a bank and present ourselves as prospective home investment people. And you can help us a lot, Kris, by allowing us to understand, okay, what are some of those first steps that we need to take? And how do we need to be guided? So we're going to come back to the second half with a whole agenda for you, okay? So please, don't go away. We'll be right back.
We always knew that when we had another baby, we would love it if I could stay home. The kids shape what we do. Everything's about them. So we had to make a lot of changes. Quick Balance is this really nice feature of the Bank of the West app. The more I check into my balance, the easier it is for me to stay on track. You don't even have to log in. Hold on tight. You're on call, you know, 24/7. Every minute that the app saves me is a minute that I can spend with my family. And that means everything to me.
Apex SCF provides cutting-edge, hands-on training that effectively addresses today's threats of violence.
The Apex Stay Alive course teaches proven methods for personal protection and attack countermeasures that can be applied in any environment. In your home, at the workplace, or on campus, Apex will teach you the necessary skills to stay alive, including how to recognize and react to an active shooter scenario.
If you knew you had to fight for your life tomorrow, would you train today? Contact us now to sign up for a class in your region.
Come to the Carson Horseshoe Club for fun and friendly service. Play your favorite games, join our Players Club where you get cash for points plus food comps, and enjoy casual dining in our Lucky Horse Grill. Get it all in the heart of downtown Carson City at the family-owned, local favorite Carson Horseshoe Club.
Hi, I'm Stephen Lincoln with CarsonCityHomes.com, Carson City's original online real estate resource.
At CarsonCityHomes.com, you get effective and easy-to-use tools to help you select your next home today. With our easy-to-use website, you can search listings throughout Northern Nevada and narrow the results by selecting every facet, quirk, and quality you desire. Visit CarsonCityHomes.com.
Are you looking for a healthier lifestyle? A more nutritious diet? Do you care about quality? If your answer is yes, or if you are just curious, come into Villa Basque Deli and Cafe right here in Carson City, Nevada. Discover fine Portuguese extra virgin olive oils, vintage balsamic vinegars, and a wide assortment of international health teas provided by distributor Carpa Nevada LLC. In addition to these terrific items, Villa Basque is also the home of Pete's famous Basque chorizo, handmade on the premises from Pete's secret family recipe. Satisfy your culinary curiosities. Don't delay.
Welcome back to the second half of our show, Women to Women. We're here with Kris Smith, a mortgage banker from Bank of the West, and she is just exuding information galore that we all need to be aware of. But before we return to Kris, I'd like to thank our sponsors for the second half. Villa Basque Deli and Cafe right here in Carson City, home of Pete's famous Basque chorizo, and it is delicious. It's homemade. We'd also like to thank Carpa Nevada LLC, importer of fine Portuguese olive oils, aged balsamic vinegar, and international health teas, also to be found here at Villa Basque Deli and Cafe. And finally, we'd like to thank carsonnow.org, which is the 24/7 place to go. When you want to know what's happening in Carson City, just recently, at the spur of the moment, it's carsonnow.org. Tune in. And now let's return to Kris. And Kris, we thank you so much again for being with us. You have not only an interesting background, but an appeal for every woman out there who thinks perhaps her circumstances or her life is over, and it's not. You created another life at 50, okay, and successfully. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you, Carol.
All right, Kris, when we walk into Bank of the West, number one, what makes, in your professional opinion, Bank of the West a very comfortable place to do business in and with?
I would have to say that one of the number one reasons I am there is because we still have that hometown atmosphere in our banks.
You do.
And I believe that's hard to find these days. At one time, I covered 10 branches. And all of the lake, even as far as Grass Valley, and it did not matter what branch I was in, what day I was in the branch. But our employees know our customers on a first-name basis, and that's huge.
That's huge.
It goes miles.
And I think that's probably one of the reasons why you're such a comfortable person to speak with, is because in your traveling amongst 10 different branches, you have learned to meet people and hear people, and to discover and to make known unto them, yes, we can handle that for you. We can handle that. All right, as a mortgage banker, what do you want us to know? If I'm walking in with my husband to hopefully be able to mortgage, or a young couple come in, what do we need to know right up front about mortgages these days?
Boy, that could be, that's a big question.
It's
it
a
could
huge
be a big
question.
answer. Lending has become very complex, and each year it seems to get what we call a little tougher, a little more strict. The guidelines are a little tighter. And I understand the reasoning for that, because years ago they were a little too loose. That's the general consensus.
Oh, we got into problems with that.
Yes,
big time.
we did. But it's not rocket science.
Okay.
It seems like it to my customers because it's not what they do.
Right.
But I feel like it's really pretty black and white. The most important things about, and this is for any type of loan, for any type of financing, I believe the most important things are to have good credit. Number one, it is so important, no matter who you are, what you're trying to do, how much money you have.
Right.
Credit's everything.
Okay, and let me just interject here. So if we want to establish good credit, it means that we pay our bills on time, consistently. That's one of the important factors.
That is an important factor.
Okay.
Your credit score, is compiled of a history of making payments. And it's interesting, especially among young couples who feel, of course, they have good credit because they don't have any debt. That is not the correct perception at all.
They don't have a paper track.
Right, right. Yeah, so I always encourage young people to go and establish credit, whether it's a gas card, whether it's a Walmart credit card, something that they're going to use. Gas, they have to use either way. Walmart, groceries, they're going to buy groceries, but that way they can make that payment every month and create a history of making payments, which is going to give them a credit score.
Which is so different in some respects. That's the way it is today. And you and I grew up in an era where sometimes our parents were able to pay cash for the car. They paid cash for their home. Credit cards were not heard of at that time. Maybe for a gas credit card if you're taking a trip. But overall, cash was the way we did business.
We didn't live beyond our means then.
No, we didn't. We didn't. Okay, we lived on a budget according to, and I never knew as a kid whether my parents had money or didn't have money. I just knew that there was a nice warm bed, they loved me, and there was food on the table.
Absolutely.
All right, so continue.
So, and that's interesting what you brought up, because it's not just young couples or first-time home buyers. Even older customers don't always, they're not always aware that they don't have any credit, or if they've been creditly challenged in the past and then not reestablished credit, they're of the opinion that they should have good credit. Well, you have to reestablish it. You know, even a challenged credit score, the only way to bring that credit score up is to have debt and make payments every month on time to raise those credit scores.
Right.
So.
Okay, so besides establishing good credit, what else do we need to bring into the bank with ourselves as potential people that we may get a mortgage from?
So are you talking about documentation in order to make for us to be able to make a decision?
Right.
You know, there's basic documentation. Loans are so personal. It's all about the person. Our guidelines are our guidelines, but every person is unique in how they, where they derive their income, what they're looking to do. So documentation varies among the product and the type of financing that they're looking for. Basic documentation for a W-2 employee, which in lending, you know, those are the easy ones.
Okay,
That's the opposite of self-employed individuals.
Okay,
But excuse me, basic documentation is you know, 2 years W-2s and your recent pay stubs and maybe your bank statements to show a little assets for down payment.
What about utility bills? Do they count?
No, utility bills don't really count.
Okay.
They're not something that shows up on a credit report.
Do you have to have a permanent address?
Well, you'd have to have an address as far as a permanent address. I mean, you know.
But it has to be a physical address.
Yes, yes, physical address.
As opposed to a P.O. box.
Yes. Well,
okay.
And there's some places around the lake that only have P.O. boxes. But yes, that's just another, you know, always a challenge. But
so really, in your interview of anybody who comes in, whether it's a couple or a single person, self-employed or is an employee of somebody else, you have to do a lot of discerning in that talking interview process. So you're saying to us, we need some documentation. We need to know that you have a pretty good character reference and credit card, good credit report. So those are the first things that you might be looking for when someone comes in. You
know, there's a lot of discovery. It is a lot of conversation. It's listening. You know, a purchase is different from a refi. So yes, listening to that customer, finding out their needs, picking the best product to serve their needs.
And how do you protect them? For example, a young couple or an older couple, retiree, may be coming in with expectations that you see as a mortgage banker exceeding what they're capable of having. How do you warn them? How do you protect them like that?
Well, I would have to say that our strict guidelines, and this isn't just Bank of the West, this is lending in general, our strict guidelines are created to protect the lender as well as the borrower.
Correct.
You know, we can't put them in a loan that they do not qualify for, that is going to put them at high risk, that they don't have the ability to repay. That is what all of the underwriting guidelines and the reason for all the documentation that we collect and you know, this is kind of jokingly, but the reason we put them through the ringer is we want to make sure that this is a good loan for them and for the bank before we give it. So.
Because we have learned from, or we should have learned from the past, the recent past, that many mortgages were given to young people or to anybody who didn't have the ability to keep up those payments over a sustainable time until that mortgage is paid off. And I would think that doing business with local banks is to our advantage as opposed to a big national bank. And again, I'm not in the banking industry, and I don't have an education behind there, but I have a mind. And it's a part of my responsibility when I walk into a bank as a prospective customer to do some of my own research and to find, okay, what is the reputation of this bank? What is the general consensus nationwide of the top banks? What or the top state banks, top local banks that would fit my profile?
Sure.
Where am I able to walk in and find probably the best reception?
It's a huge trust issue. It really is. You know, I purchased 5 homes before I ever got into lending. And once I learned everything about it, I looked back and momentarily was horrified at what I might have done. But it's something, it's what I do. I need to know everything about it. You don't. So it's my customers have to trust me to a certain extent.
Yes, absolutely.
And I try to bring out the black and white of it because it does seem overwhelming when it's not something you know. But you know, to me, the black and white of lending is good credit. It's good employment history. I have found in my career that the people that have the most, I don't know if I want to call it financial security, because I see a lot of different credit scores and a lot of different situations, but they are the ones that stay in the same job, stay in the same home. Right. That stability I see really does create, does create that security.
So there's hope for us who may be a little flaky, okay? We can change that style. Okay, there's hope for all of us. Well, as a final question, a very quick one, a very quick response, for women out there who are looking to perhaps be able to go further with in their lives with success, what's the rule or what's the general framework that you would give to them in terms of encouragement?
Well, I've had
what's worked for you?
I've had some challenges in my life, and that's all good. You know, that's what makes us who we are.
Yes.
I've always lived by that rule.
Don't be afraid of challenge.
No, not at all.
Okay.
You know, I've joked many times that I'm jumping off another cliff, but sometimes you've got to jump off that cliff or move your cheese or however you want to put it.
Okay. Well, you've had a parachute because you've had the determination and the focus to get back on track, and that's a great parachute to have.
I have wonderful daughters and wonderful granddaughters and great family that, you know, that's very motivating, no matter what your challenge.
Okay, thank you so much for being with us, Kris, and we'll look for your face when we come into Bank.
I hope so, Carol. Okay, thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome.
This was fun.
Take care, everyone. We'll be back with you next week with a brand new guest. In the meantime, absorb what she has shared with us. It's great. Take care. Good night.
More homes are being threatened by wildfire than ever before.
At the National Weather Service, we anticipate critical fire weather conditions and issue red flag warnings. Red flag days occur when conditions are ideal for ignition and rapid spread of wildfire.
Please report smoke or unsafe activity by quickly calling 911, and don't assume someone already has.
Stay informed by frequenting weather.gov/Reno or following us on Facebook and Twitter.
Hi, I'm Roy Halliday. As pet owners, we can help end the suffering of millions of dogs and cats. Animal shelters struggle to assist in huge numbers of animal litters. Many more suffer on the streets, never even reaching the safety of a shelter. My family does our part in making sure our pets are spayed and neutered. For more information, contact my friends at the Humane Society of the United States. Remember, pets are for life.